Hey there, Internet friends. Welcome to another episode of That Nerdy Site Show, a weekly podcast where the team members from That Nerdy Site get together to talk about our lives and all of the nerdy things we love about them. I'm your host, Trevor Starkey, and joining me this week, we're doing another Fireside Chats episode with just me and Frank Bazzani. How you doing, Frank?
Pretty good. How are you doing?
Doing good. I'm sitting down with you to talk in between deep dives into Hamilton. I did one this morning or earlier today with Logan. I'm going to be sitting down with Cameron here in an hour or so to talk Hamilton with them for that D plus show. So I was like, okay, let me squeeze in that nerdy show in here and kind of bring you on for that episode, so I can kind of check in with most of the team. Jazz being the only remaining member that I am not sitting down with, but I'm supposed to sit down with her in a couple days, and she and I are going to sit down and talk about Hamilton too. So, yay for Hamilton and other things.
Eh,
Keeping the
eh,
team together.
I neglected to mention it beforehand too, but now that Hamilton is on Disney Plus, I'm probably going to give it a try just to see. Like, I've heard nothing but great things, and it sounds very interesting. So I kind of want to give it a try just to see.
Yeah, check it out because like your perspective I would be very interested to hear and discuss with on the show, because like everybody else I've talked to and am planning on talking to, like either has a love of the show or knows about the show very well. So you, as somebody who's really only heard about the show kind of secondhand, I'm looking forward. I would love to kind of sit down and have a conversation with you about like your impressions on it. So yeah, and for the broader context, basically what I'm doing is on that D Plus show, because Hamilton is now out on Disney Plus. I have so many people I want to talk about that show with that I'm basically doing like a mini run of Hamilton-centric D Plus shows. So we're not going to be diving into a lot of the other Disney fare on that D Plus show. For the immediate future, it's going to be just kind of a whole bunch of like one-on-one conversations about Hamilton, about favorite moments in Hamilton, favorite characters, favorite songs, all that stuff. So I would love to sit down and chat with you about that at some point if you end up sitting down and watching it. Other than that, a little bit of housekeeping. If you enjoy what you hear on the show, please remember to like, subscribe, rate, review the podcast everywhere you can. And if you're feeling extra generous, you can always support us on Patreon at patreon.com/thatnerdysite. No new patrons this week, but I do want to give a shout out to our monthly Patreon producers, Dan Lima, Pam and Bev Larson, Sherry Starkey, my mom, thank you, Mom, Teresa Wilkinson, thank you, Logan's mom, and myself, Trevor Starkey. And also, Dan really is the only one who's not related to any of us, because Pam and Bev being my aunt and recently passed away grandmother, continuing to support in her honor, basically, is what my aunt is doing. So shout out to all of our Patreon producers. Thank you to all of them. So yeah, let's dive right on into topics of this show. Last time we had, I think it was the last time we had you on, Frank, you talked about watching The Fellowship of the Ring for the first time, Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring. And you mentioned kind of coming into this episode that you have now watched The Two Towers. So let's talk about Two Towers. What did you think of that one?
I really enjoyed it. I honestly, it's not like I hated Fellowship or disliked it or anything like that, but I wasn't like super hot on it. I was just kind of like, it's not bad, but it didn't like blow me away. And like kind of one of the things I think I had mentioned too, even though I have been watching the extended editions, I was like, this is kind of long, where there's just long periods where like nothing is happening other than just like world building and kind of like explanation.
Yeah,
And I feel
that's.
like Two Towers is like the opposite. Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say the extended editions in across the series really add in a whole bunch of like, this is stuff for fans of the books that was rightly cut out of the movies to because they drag down pacing a little bit. So it's much more like these are for the diehards. And so it's an interesting. I think I said last time. It's interesting that your first pass at these is watching the extended versions instead of like the theatrical released versions, because I think that might. I would be very interested if you were to go back and watch this in a non-extended version, what you would think about that. It'd be like watching like the extended Snyder cut of Batman v Superman versus the theatrically released one that most of us saw first, and same with the eventual Justice League. But yeah, I'm glad that to hear that the Two Towers didn't feel necessarily as much like the extended cut version of it.
Yeah, yeah, and then that's kind of a great way to put it, where like it was the extended edition, but where like Fellowship, it really felt extended, and like yeah, I could imagine, and especially like based on what you had told me, like yeah, this was kind of cut down and was a little bit smoother, and the pacing was probably a little bit better, and the extended edition kind of adds a lot of that stuff in that the people want and are looking for, like the huge Lord of the Rings fans. And I could almost even imagine that, yeah, like the probably for the first time viewing, probably especially for people who don't have like the knowledge or the attachment to Lord of the Rings, doing the theatrical cut probably is the way to go. But watching the Two Towers extended there, I felt like it was still like really awesome. And I almost, when I think about like Two Towers, and I think about like, okay, well, what did they cut for like the theatrical cut? I'm sure probably a lot, but it's still like it doesn't feel like this big bloated experience to me, at least. Because maybe it's because there's a little bit more action, there's a little bit like faster paced in general.
Mhm.
But yeah, like the Fellowship to me at least was like incredibly slow, especially because it takes literally 2 hours to get to the point where they go, and you're the Fellowship of the Ring.
Yeah,
Like, and I was like, we could have done that 10 minutes in.
yeah, yeah. I think the a lot of the stuff that's in the extended edition, like probably the most noticeable stuff, is a lot of the Treebeard scenes. A lot of those are cut out, and you don't get as much of the like back and forth between Merry and Pippin and Treebeard, doing the whole like Entmoot or whatever it is. Like there are still some in there, but it's not nearly as long and drawn out. And there's probably just one or two cutbacks to that just don't happen in the abridged version. That's probably
And
the thing you would recognize the most, just because those are already in their nature inherently intentionally drawn out a little bit. So seeing them like not be there in the theatrically released version, helps the pacing of those sequences a little bit.
no, that's actually a great point, because that kind of whole sequence kind of skipped my mind, honestly. And that is the part I could probably do the most without in the entire movie. And I completely understand, like it is slow paced on purpose, because that's like who the characters are. Like they're slow, they talk slow, like they don't want to get involved in this war. So they're like, there's the whole joke where they've been talking for like a whole day, and he's like, we're just saying hello. And then like like they're just greeting each other and like saying hello or whatever, but it's been 6 hours like in real time
Yeah,
for everything. And it's like I get that it's totally that way on purpose. And even like I did actually go back and watch the in review that Kind of Funny did, and like Nick kind of even mentioned like, yeah, like you're kind of like supposed to be frustrated at these moments,
hmm,
because like you're like Mary and Pippin are frustrated, and I'm like, yeah, but like I could really do without all of that,
yeah,
basically.
yeah. And
um
and as somebody who like remembers those sequences from the book too, there is like it is like you want to just get back to the action, especially especially once you get into like the Helm's Deep sequence of the film, which is a mastercraft in like action storytelling stuff. Anytime you have to like cut back to the the Ents slowly talking or something like that, it's like, come on, just get to the part at the end where the Ents are like running down and like destroying the tower and all the armies out there around Isengard.
because that part was great.
Yeah,
Big thumbs up for me on that. Thought that was wonderful. And I get they try, I guess, especially in the extended edition, they're setting up like who these people are and like why, they're doing what they're doing or why they didn't want to. But even if it was just like the introduction of like these people exist, and then it cut to the end where they were screwed like fucking up Isengard, I'd be like, okay, wonderful. Like
yeah,
that's all I needed from them.
yeah. And I think also some of the I think some more of the subplot between like Aragorn and Eowyn, I think, is also some of the stuff that's added in the extended edition. That's not like I think a lot of Eowyn stuff kind of gets added into the extended edition to help flesh out her character a little bit. Like especially her like some of the stuff with her brother Eomer, I think is also cut like on the cutting room floor in the theatrical version.
Is he the one that dies at Helm's Deep?
Eomer, no, Eomer is the Carl Urban character.
Oh, okay, okay.
Like one of the riders of Rohan. No, the guy who dies at Helm's Deep, if I'm remembering correctly, is like one of the elves from Lothlorien or something like that. One of the elves in Kate Blanchett's kind of camp. who goes to fight alongside like Aragorn and stuff like that. And so yeah, I think so. He gets a little bit of like a moment there that it's like, okay, well, we like he's not one of like the main faces we knew, so it's not as dramatic as it would be if it was like friggin' Hugo Weaving or something like that. But yeah, I think that's I did not rewatch as I was going as kind of funny was going through these. I rewatched Fellowship. I did not go through Lord of the Rings and actually I think I rewatched Fellowship after you kind of talked about it last time. I was like, hey, yeah, I've got all those extended editions. Let me throw them on. But I just never got around to Two Towers. So I'm pulling all this from my memory from like I don't know 10 years ago or something like that. But yeah, I think that's the elf that kind of or the person that dies there at Helm's Deep. That like one of the because one of the issues that I think Tim brings up in some of his frustrations of like their Lord of the Rings in review is that there aren't enough stakes, and that like the idea that nobody else in the Fellowship died in this movie or something like that, so really only Boromir has like fallen from the Fellowship of the Rings in a Game of Thrones world where like every other character it seems is destined to die. Like Lord of the Rings feels very out of touch, but the thing people have to realize is that Game of Thrones was written in specific opposition to Lord of the Rings, which is very much more good overcoming evil. And yes, there will be a couple fallen soldiers, but they're not going to be the people we care about as much.
Yeah, no, like I think that I had really thought about it like that, but I do think that is a fair point to raise against the movie. But yeah, exactly. Like then my next point would be exactly like you said there, where I was like, this is again like this is a pre Game of Thrones world, and then like, yeah, like you said, if anything, Game of Thrones is kind of directly kind of coming in against something like this and trying to like Game of Thrones. I feel like it did put kind of add in this whole thing of like, yeah, these are the main characters, but that does not mean they are safe. That means they are going to probably die. Like these are characters in the world.
Yeah, they are the main characters for this book. They're not going to be the main characters for the next book necessarily. Some of them will be. Some of them, survive, and especially, now that the series is done, you can like they're even like I was always wary with Game of Thrones when people would be like, "Oh my god, you can't end of Game of Thrones," I would say, like the last few seasons, people were like, "Oh my god, like nobody's dying." And it's like, yeah, because the people that aren't like the people that are left are the people who are so integral to the story that they were designed from the beginning to like survive, whereas like everybody else, like you don't know who the filler characters are until you have the perspective of hindsight. Like you don't realize Ned Stark is a filler character until you can look at that. Like obviously he dies at the end of the first season. Spoilers for Game of Thrones, the book for 25 years and the show for 10 or whatever. But like I remember like the earth shattered when he died or whatever, and it's like, yeah, but like if you look at the thing in the context of 7 books, he's barely a footnote character. So like you have to realize that other characters that are introduced at the beginning and that survive all the way to the end, whether or not the show and the book end up matching up if the books are ever actually released, it's like you have to look at that kind of full context of the story to really understand who the important characters were all along versus what characters were introduced and killed off. Like they were introduced and maybe given great moments or given terrible moments or something like that, but they were always intended to be killed. And so that's something that like I think people just get too caught up in the moment of a show like that, versus like realizing what the full story arc of the Song of Fire and Ice or Ice and Fire or whatever it is, that's the whole saga, that like Lord of the Rings is like at the end of the day, Game of Thrones not drastically different from Lord of the Rings in that regard, because you could basically say like, oh, this elf character that dies at Helm's Deep or something, you could have made him up to be a little bit more of an important character in the books or something like that, and he dies, but he dies to show and again, I don't think this was in the books either, but he's dying in that sequence at Helm's Deep to remind us that elves are not immortal. He dies specifically to like say elves can die too. They don't die of old age, but they will bleed and die just like anybody else on the battlefield. So So he's not immune to that, and Legolas is not immune to that. Is the theory behind that then? But yeah, what did you think of Helm's Deep in general?
So yeah, like that Helm's Deep I thought was great, and I've heard about the Battle of Helm's Deep for forever, even without having. I have seen like random clips from it too, but like I hadn't seen like the entire thing front to back until just having watched the movie there, and I thought yeah, like I thought it was great, especially just going back to I guess just cinematography or even just like the way that it is in the movie. I thought it was really awesome that you basically get to see the entire battle almost like because you get to the point where they're like getting ready, the other army marches up and they kind of like square off, and then it turns into like a full-on actual like castle siege where they're
Mm-hmm.
actually using like real siege tactics. And I know it cuts away and kind of cuts to different places and stuff like that, but like you really get to see the entire battle from the point where they ride up and try to siege, and then they're like, okay, we got to fall back, and they fall back like three times or whatever. But like I thought that was all really awesome because even thinking about like other things I've seen, like when do you ever just get to watch an entire castle siege play out in anything else? Like
Yeah,
even since Lord of the Rings, like, and because going back to one of my other, I guess, comparisons that I would have for fantasy is Game of Thrones, even though I
exactly.
fell
Yeah,
out in the later seasons. Like, but even when they're doing like a castle siege or something, it always like cuts away. Like you start to see swords clash, and then it cuts to like an empty battlefield with a bunch of dead bodies.
yeah. It's
You don't get to see the entire thing.
Yeah, Game of Thrones does delve more into like actually showing some of those battles in later seasons, but yeah, some of the it was one of those like famously in like the first season Tyrion gets knocked out right before a battle or something, and they just use it as kind of a clever framing device to explain away why they don't have to show the entire battle because they wouldn't have had the money and the resources to bring on all those extras and all that stuff. But yeah, there was also a lot made that up until Game of Thrones, the final season, Helm's Deep was like the longest put to screen kind of battle sequence ever produced, ever filmed. And one of the final episodes of Game of Thrones ends up beating that by a few minutes, and that was kind of like one of the big like things that Game of Thrones was selling on in the final season on. And even that episode of Game of Thrones is very similar in nature to the Helm's Deep fight in that it is showing you kind of the different stages of the battle. It is the siege outside, and then they break the walls, and then you see kind of what happens once they're within the walls, and then you see kind of what happens, as people are retreating further into the dungeons and the keeps and whatever, and then you get like a final push where hopefully good triumphs over evil kind of thing, and it's very much it is that kind of like structured siege mentality that you're kind of seeing here in Helm's Deep. And yeah, it's one of the I remember that being like just a cool standout thing, and along or like within all of that, you still get great little character moments like the ongoing kind of rivalry between Legolas and Gimli, and you get the little moment of Gimli telling Aragorn to throw him. Nobody tosses a dwarf, but go ahead, toss me. That little sequence. So there's like a lot of great little character beats amidst all that, as well as just incredible fun action. And yeah, you understand the flow of that battle, and you see the devastation that like suicide bomber guy gets when he blows up the storm drain or whatever, and how that turns the tide of the battle, and then the man has to kind of really readjust and kind of change up their strategies. Like it was always they knew that they weren't going to be able to, keep them out for forever, but that thing that they never would have seen coming drastically has to like it turns the tide of the battle, so they have to improvise and adjust in the moment. And it like really when I think of Two Towers, like I think of Helm's Deep and I forget most of the rest of that movie.
No, I'm with you there too, because even though I had just watched this like a week or two ago, but in my head when I think of the movie, I'm just thinking of the entirety of like the Battle of Helm's Deep, and then a couple random things with like Frodo and Sam, and I
Mm-hmm.
completely forgot all the stuff with the Ents was even in the movie until you just mentioned it like a
Yeah,
moment ago. But
yeah.
that's what like I honestly, if anything, like the Battle of Helm's Deep is so great, it does almost like prop the entire movie up, like just like how I just thought the whole sequence was awesome. And then
Yeah.
I
And
like
before that, like they had the whole first half of that movie is where they, find Gandalf again, and or like I mean the movie opens with Gandalf fighting the Balrog, and you getting to see kind of what happened when he fell into that thing. And that's why I didn't last time we were on, you talked about like I feel like he could have killed killed the Balrog or whatever, or I feel like he could have gotten away or whatever. And I didn't want to spoil that like I was very careful to not reference the fact that Gandalf comes back. So I was curious, like, did you know that Gandalf comes back? What did you think in that reveal?
so yeah, this is one of the things I was excited to talk about because I did know Gandalf came back as Gandalf and he switches from being Gandalf the Grey to Gandalf the White. And that's where I was like, I just like the way it was kind of shot in the movie. Like I just thought it was kind of weird because he definitely like throws himself in, and I didn't like because then that's all you see from him, and then they leave. Like he tells them to go, and he throws himself in, and I was like, just in Fellowship by itself, like as somebody who has never read these books, I was just kind of like confused because I was like, I thought like, okay, the Balrog's gone, he can just clearly have escaped with them. But then when you go into Two Towers and it begins with that, I really appreciated the kind of getting his side of it where he throws himself in and he's like, no, the Balrog is still here. I have to like fight it and try to basically cover their escape. And I'm like, oh, okay, this makes 100% more sense and is way more awesome than they led me to believe, I guess, just in the 2 seconds you get like at the in Fellowship.
Yeah,
And thought that it was great though. Like I really like the fact he dives in after and he grabs his sword and it's just like all these shots of him fighting the Balrog and then it's kind of them even like in different places. Like and he's like, I think I forget the amount of time he says, but he's like, I fought that Balrog for like an entire day or whatever, just like all over the place.
yeah,
And like I thought that was really awesome. And so that's what kind of made me even like retroactively be like, okay, that entire sequence makes more sense to me now. And if anything, it's way cooler than Gandalf just actively killing himself for apparently no reason.
yeah. He's sacrificing himself so that they can get away, but also because he realizes this thing needs to be stopped. He needs to use his godly powers as a wizard because that's like they dive into this a little bit more in a lot of the in review stuff because they have like some of the lore book nerds that are helping them out with some of that stuff, and I certainly don't know it all that much, but like basically Gandalf and Saruman are demigods or whatever in the lore of Middle Earth or something, and so he's kind of utilizing his abilities and his powers to eliminate this great evil of the Balrog from the world, and that's why he's able to come back as Gandalf the White later on. So yeah, that's another fun little sequence that like that happens very early on, but then also ends up setting up for the Helm's Deep stuff because Gandalf obviously comes in to kind of save the day at the end of the Helm's Deep battle, bringing the Riders of Rohan with him.
And I like that too because I like he always speaks and Gandalf always has those kind of like riddles and random things, but that's where he tells Aragorn like he was like on the dawn of the fifth day, look to the east, like and
Yep.
we'll be there. And then that when Aragorn has that moment when like he realizes the sun is like rising and he's like, okay, we have to ride out and meet them, like, and then you just get that whole like incredible sequence, like.
Yeah. Yeah. Lots of good stuff in Two Towers. I'm glad you're continuing on enjoying it. I look forward to touching base with you once you've gotten through Return of the King, because that wraps up that trilogy, and in my opinion, I think in a very satisfying way. But I know there are people that are kind of all over the place on it. But it sounds like Two Towers, especially from a pacing perspective, you really appreciate it a lot more, and had a lot more kind of those Tim Geddes get hype moments for you.
And I also loved like in the Battle of Helm's Deep, you kind of mentioned it too, but I love you. That's where I felt like it does a better job or well, it was like Gimli and Legolas kind of hate each other in the beginning, and I get why. And then I think it like you kind of see their that friendship kind of grow together, and because I know what happens at the end with them. So I liked seeing their interactions where like Legolas tells him like, "Do you want me to get you a box?" And then he
Yeah.
just like laughs. And I love the kill count thing too, where he's like, I've already gotten 3, and he's like, I'm on 17, and he like arrows another guy. Like
Yeah.
Yeah, like that stuff I thought was like really awesome, like on things on top of like this entire battle going on.
Yeah, it just adds extra little flavors too. So it's not just like fight, 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 fight. There are little bits of humor and emotion in there to just make you care that much more about everything that's going on. Well, cool. Any last thoughts you want to share on Two Towers, or are we ready to dive on to the next topic?
I think that is pretty much everything that I had about it. Like I definitely just overall enjoyed it a lot more, and I have, if anything, I have nothing but great things to say about like the Battle of Helm's Deep. Although, from like the one thing I did think was weird is like that I did like the guy who ignites the like the bombs to blow up the initial like wall.
Uh huh.
I did definitely laugh when he kind of like because he does like literally like the Olympic torch run
Yeah.
like, and that's what like I like seeing it in the movie. I had that exact thought, and then Nick brings it up in the review that he's like the Olympic torch runner. That and then he just dives headfirst into the thing and it blows up. And like I think that's a little bit like goofier than maybe they even intended, but like that is still like a cool moment. And when he's like, "Get that guy," and like he's just firing arrows into him and he won't go down.
Yeah, it's. I mean, like, because you gotta imagine, like, especially in like this fantasy world, like they don't know what a suicide bomber is or or any of that kind of stuff. So like they just see that like the army is parting the way for this guy to like make a beeline for this path. You can pretty quickly see like what he's heading for. So you would realize, oh, like I don't know what he's gonna do, but that's a vulnerable thing that he's heading for. So we need to like, and he's clearly like got importance on their end of things. So we need to do we need to stop him somehow. And yeah, the fact that they are unable to, again, like that is a very dramatic shift in the battle at Helm's Deep. So, but yeah, I that it's definitely a fun like little thing to be tongue in cheek about kind of thing with our lens, but in the world of the characters is like this guy is just running and he's got a thing on fire. I don't know what the hell's going on. But yeah, like how are we screwed or whatever? Like yeah, but yes, Olympic torch running orc number one. So diving into to my first topic, I was telling Frank about this a little bit beforehand. I have been playing. I got an urge recently to revisit, and probably because I've been seeing like I've been playing some mobile games and stuff, and like one of the ads I've been seeing is for a game very much like inspired by this series. And the series is called Heroes of Might and Magic. It's one I grew up playing on PC. Heroes of Might and Magic 2 and 3 in particular are like the ones that I remember for like my childhood. And so I was like, I wonder what's going on with that series. And I started looking into it a couple days ago and discovered that Ubisoft manages that series. And back in 2015, they released Heroes of Might and Magic 7. And I
Oh
looked
wow,
at,
I didn't know
yeah,
they were already on 7.
yeah, they're up to 7. And I looked at 7 and I was like, looks like they like, so the Heroes of Might and Magic 2 and 3 in particular, and I think 1 was this way as well. And I feel like they probably even kept it up until like 5 or something. But it was very much like in the style of old school real-time strategy games where like you're looking down on a map and your character is moving across a map. It's not like it's not real-time strategy in the sense of say like a Warcraft or a Diablo or not Diablo, Starcraft. It's more like you control a hero and you're moving around a map and there are like resources on the map that you can collect. There are enemies like on the map that if you attack an enemy, it will shift into like a battle screen, like a turn-based battle screen where like your hero's armies will fight off against the armies that you're fighting against. And you can acquire towns and then you can like build up those towns to give you more resources on a daily basis. Every week, like the creature city or creature buildings of those towns will like replenish, and so like every week you if you're building like one of the like there are different classes of characters too, and so like one of the human class characters, it's like you can get pikemen from them and then you can upgrade that building, they'll get like halberds, or you can get like archers that'll upgrade into crossbowmen, up till like, and there's like I want to say each class has like 7 different tiers of enemies that'll some are like melee, some are ranged and stuff. And the human class, like the tier 7 warriors that you get are literally angels, that can upgrade to archangels, and they'll do just massive damage and stuff. And they cost the most to try and recruit to your army and stuff. Anyway, so you like it's a resource management kind of sim game like that, and you're fighting off against computer opponents, or back in the day you could play multiplayer games and stuff like that. And so all this said, like I'd been looking into that game. I looked at this version 7, and it looks like they've gone much more into like the 3D realm of kind of like how all of that stuff is showcased. And I was like, that seems like a lot more that I don't really want to get into. I just kind of want this little nostalgic fix. So I found, especially as part of the summer Steam sale, Heroes of Might and Magic 3 HD, for like $3 or something like that. So I picked it up and just spent most of yesterday playing this game, and just enjoying it, and just the fun little like flash back to the past, because there are like you can do just random like single scenario encounters where it'll be like pick which class you want to do and pick how many enemies you want to fight, and the map size. It's kind of like Civilization a little bit in that regard. And it'll be like, okay, we're going to randomly generate this map for you. Or you can do like campaigns, and it'll be like, here's a little story. And so I'm going through right now like the human campaign, and in the first mission of that, you basically have like one city, and enemy forces have taken over like the other 3 towns on the map in like each of the 4 corners of the map, basically. And you're tasked with sending out warriors to go and like recapture all those other towns. And the way they structure the campaign is like your heroes that you get and are kind of like moving around the map, they will cap out at some point. So you can't like just kind of grind them up and have them learn every possible spell and every possible ability or whatever. They will like max out at a certain level, and then your top however many heroes will move on to the next chapter of the campaign with you. And so it's just kind of a fun little like I get all those characters leveled up, and then I kind of make sure they have adequate armies around. And you can like go to different items or get different like buildings on the map, basically. Like you can go to a water mill that will give you a few gems or something that you can use as a resource to buy units or to buy building upgrades or something like that back at your home base. And the water wheel is basically like every week it replenishes. Or there are things that'll be like, your hero can visit this once for a permanent upgrade, or your hero can visit this and they'll get like a luck boost or a morale boost for the next fight, and that'll affect how your troops deal in combat. Like high morale troops will occasionally get like an extra turn to move or something. And good high luck will, they'll do critical damage when they attack foes and stuff. And so it's just a fun little blast to the past. I looked it up when I was talking to Frank about this before the show. This is a game that came out in February of 1999 is when I originally would have been playing it back when that would have been in February of 1999. I was in 8th grade. So this was probably a staple of like the summer before high school for me. And yeah, it's just been a fun little like diversion in between Last of Us, which we will do dedicated episodes toward in the future, and the next kind of onslaught of big games of Ghost of Tsushima coming out, as well as like Paper Mario and stuff like that. So I'm not super eager to dive into another game before then, but this was a fun little like blast from the past that I can boot up, pay $3 for, and just kind of spend a day enjoying. Yesterday, as the rest of the world was dealing with 4th of July festivities, I was just kind of like running around these little maps, collecting resources, building up troops, and then fighting other heroes and capturing cities and stuff. So, so
It
that's
sounds
yeah,
it sounds
that's
fun. Like I had only really like had a tangential kind of knowledge of the series before we were talking about it, and I
mhm.
kind of looked up some screenshots while you were talking about it. And what's funny, I laughed because immediately the first thing that pops up was a whole bunch of angels. So I was like,
Yep.
that must be the definitely like the top tier character to use.
And
I
that's
was
yeah
just
for like the human class angels are the top tier. Like they're you can get like because there's also a lot of times there's like an overworld and then an underworld that you can kind of like travel between like diving into caves and stuff like that. And so like the underworld class is like necromancers, and so it'll be like skeletons and demons and Cerberus dogs and devil characters, and then like archdevils or whatever. And then there are like more magical class kind of characters, so there'll be like halflings or troglodytes or beholders and stuff. Like they definitely run the gamut of like there's what medusas and stuff like that. There are yeah just so many different classes, and again like some of these get expanded on and they add like different classes in later versions of the games and stuff, so I don't remember which ones are in which, but since I've been largely focused on the human characters, angels are like the powered, and in the second or third mission in the campaign you basically start the map and it's like the scenario is you have to you've just entered these lands and all of the towns have been taken over. The angels will help you if you ask for them, and you will find like angels on the map that you can basically like run up to, and some of them might attack you, but many of them will, like you'll get a little text pop up that says the angels want to join your team or something like that. And that's like throughout the game you'll encounter a lot of that stuff where it'll be like you'll walk up to somebody and it'll be it'll either be a fight or it'll be like, hey, these enemies are in awe of your strength and they flee. Do you want to chase after them? And you can basically say yes and fight them, or you can say no and just like they just disappear from the map. Or some will be like, hey, these guys are in awe of you and they'll join you if you pay them. And so you can basically use your gold to basically recruit that enemy from the map, or they'll just join you outright. And so they're like the second map is you don't have any towns, but you can go around and you can like collect angels to fight alongside your like super like low level pikemen or crossbowmen or something like that, and the angels themselves can deal and succumb to significant damage. So yeah, like each of the high level kind of enemies kind of fits that. But yes, angels and archangels are are kind of one of the go-tos of that series.
and it sounds like the whole it sounds cool, and it definitely sounds like the main kind of thrust is you kind of conquesting or taking back like some of those lands that have already been kind of taken over or are being like besieged. Is there do you get like does your kind of base get like attacked? Like is there some kind of like defense side, or are you just constantly going out and attacking?
Yeah, no. So basically you are what you're controlling around the map is your hero. And the enemy forces have heroes of their own as well, so they can they can take their hero and go into a town. And if you in a town itself, you can leave armies there garrisoned in the town, and you can build up like your town defenses. And so you can build like a castle that will give you a little moat. It'll give you tower walls. It'll give you you can get basically like archer parapets built into your walls. And so if an enemy force attacks and you don't have any troops, they'll just take over your castle. It's basically like you left the door open and they just walked in. So you have to be careful of that. But if they attack and you have troops there, they might be able to see like there are some siege weapons like a catapult that you get. Like the catapult will attack like once a turn, and it'll do damage to the wall, and it might take 2 hits for a wall to be destroyed. Your heroes can basically power up their siege ability, where it'll like the first level of power up, it will give you control over the catapult, so you can choose what you want to attack on the wall or on the parapets or something like that. And then like further leveling up does more damage. Because if you don't have that skill level up at all, you'll have the catapult and it just attacks automatically and just chooses a random target. So it might not break the wall where you want it to break or something like that. So yeah, that's either you're on the attacking or defending side of things there, and you can basically say, because if you like one of the things I would do is I would set up my my castles with kind of like a series of archers or ranged attackers. And I would basically just let them, if I have any hand-to-hand attackers or melee attackers also there, I just kind of like let them sit back and let the army kind of come to them and just use my ranged attackers to pick off as many forces as I can before they start attacking because they will need to get through the walls or the moat or the or they'll have to like knock down the drawbridge. Because one of like the tricks you can do, because if you have like your people like leave the castle, and the computer AI will do this all the time, where they will basically like walk out on the drawbridge, and if you kill the enemy while it's on the drawbridge, because it's basically like a grid-based attack system. So like your enemy might only be able to move 4 spaces, and if that 4th space is basically like on the drawbridge spot, they're going to stop moving, and then they can't move until their next turn. So if you kill like that unit while it's on the drawbridge stays down, and now you have like a way into the castle to kill the rest of the guys. There are some like flying enemies, like the angels can obviously fly over walls, and stuff like that. So there are other ways around those things, but if your opponent doesn't have those kinds of abilities or that kind of access, being able to take out a lot of their their attacks before they can attack the rest of your forces means that you're going to be in a much better position. So yeah, that's kind of what the attack phase of it is, and that's it can be hero to hero just out on the battlefield, or it can be in one of those castle settings, or depending on how you've built up your castle and what kind of like buildings you've reinforced it with, you'll have different extra abilities there in the castle. And your hero also has the potential to get magic spells. So you can like cast lightning on foes, or you can cast like one of the ones I remember using a lot as a kid is you can cast quicksand, and it'll like randomly put quicksand fields on the battlefield, and the enemy won't be able to see those quicksand fields, but if they walk onto it, they'll just be stuck there and they won't be able to move the rest of the battle. And so you can basically, once they're trapped in quicksand, you can just kind of like walk up to them and kill them, and do some damage there. So yeah, there's just lots of elements at play that you can kind of explore and play around with in that series. And like if you build a mage's tower in like one of your towns, you can basically build it up to different levels of the mage's guild. So level 1, you get level 1 skills. Like you get 5 level 1 skills. Level 2, you get 4 level 2 skills. Level 3, you get 3 level 3 skills. Level 4, you get 2 level 4 skills. And then if you get up to level 5, you'll get a level 5, super powerful spell from it. And you can, if you have 4 different towns on the map, you can build up each of the mage guilds in those different towns, and you'll get different spells. So if you take your hero into each of those different towns, they'll learn different spells from each of your different mage guilds and stuff, so they can take those out into combat. And even there, like, you have to level up certain like think of them as maybe like Fallout perks or something like that, where you have to have like basic wisdom to even use level 3 skills, or level 3 spells. And it's basically basic, intermediate, and advanced, I think, are the different tiers of skills you can have. So like you can't use level 5 skills unless you have like a advanced person with that specific skill set. Otherwise they're going to be locked to like your low level 1 and 2 kind of spells and stuff. So yeah. Any other questions or anything?
No, like it just definitely sounds really cool, and even if anything, really like dynamic. And I could see why. I guess obviously with the older game, the multiplayer is probably like turned off or there's no servers. But I think that sounds like it would be really cool in like a multiplayer sense. Like where you're both kind of building up your sides and like how you want to play.
Yeah, the Steam store made it very specifically known, like, yes, multiplayer, or like online functionality is off, but it is, you can, in the same way you can do with like Civilization games, you can do like local multiplayer. So you could basically like you could all sit around a computer and take turns, like playing through and going through that world, because it is a turn-based kind of thing. You're not acting in real time with one another. Some of the later versions might have moved into that direction. I don't know. But yeah, that's so if you were to hop in like to Heroes of Might and Magic 7, that might still have some kind of like online component that you could play with people online or something. But yeah, this game from 1999 does not have an online element anymore, for online multiplayer. But I believe it does have local multiplayer built in. So And that's like I remember playing these kinds of games with my sister growing up and stuff. We would, I would take my turn, and then I'd go and I'd step away from the computer. She'd take her turn, and then I'd come back and have to see like what she had done and that kind of stuff. So, yeah, fun game. That's just a nice little trip down memory lane for me. So throwing it back over to you, Frank, also on the game front, you, similar to me recently, you hopped back into Grand Theft Auto Online. And we were talking a little bit beforehand. You hopped into a little bit more Grand Theft Auto Online than I did, it would seem. So how's your time with Grand Theft Auto Online been?
Yeah, like I definitely was enjoying it, but like it's kind of like we were even talking about a little bit, like just gets really frustrating. Like, and I felt like if anything, the game's like pushing against me trying to play it. Like, and I don't even, I guess, mean even in the sense of like it is a grind, and I feel like that's what like most of the online setup is like you just grinding for things, and even where like oh, you want to do these missions? Well, you have to buy the arcade or the arena war thing where but you have to buy a spot at the arena and you have to upgrade the cars and you have like it's like there's a huge buy-in for so much stuff. And I can kind of even see how like that's how it is even paced out where you can see kind of as they're adding things it takes more and more and more buy-in because like you're supposed to have done already all the stuff before, so
Mm-hmm.
it can even be it feels a little bit overwhelming to just dive in now as like a fairly new player. Like I played it years ago, so my guy was already level 5. I already did the intro. But even then just diving in and having basically not touched anything in the entire game, it just slams you with everything all at the same time. I don't know if you had like a similar experience trying to get back into it.
I hopped back in, and I had played a little bit of GTA Online back when the this generation's versions of the game came out, but like those files are long gone from any of my like they're not on any of my servers or anything like that, so I couldn't find them, so I just restarted, re-rolled a new character, and so yeah, I had to kind of replay through like the tutorial things there, and then like once I got away from that, it's like, hey, come here, and I forget his name. Is it Lester? The kind of mastermind behind the heists and stuff. He
Yeah.
he like the new scene I saw was like him basically talking about how it was like the introduction to the casino heist or something like that, and I was like, oh, like none of this is a thing I can do or I'm anywhere near being able to do. But it like introduced me to that like whole cutscene, and then it constantly is giving me like, hey, buy an arcade so you can have access to this thing. I'm like, I don't have money for an arcade.
It's 2.5 fucking million dollars. Like I don't have that kind of money just lying around. Like
Yeah.
what
So
got
so yeah, I'm seeing that kind of stuff, and it's like, yeah, there are a ton of things that I'm like, I don't know, I like, because I remember like when heists obviously got added to it, it was like that was a big thing, and I'm like, I wouldn't even be able to tell you where to begin on trying to plan a heist actually in game with any of those people. But I would constantly get like invitations from other players, be like, hey, come do this heist with us or whatever. I'm like, you don't want me on this heist with you. I guarantee you, I have a pistol and that's it. I will be completely useless to you on any kind of heist.
and there's a lot of people too that like if you join and they see that like you're low level or like they'll just like kick you out of their
Exactly.
party.
Yeah.
And no, because like yeah, it sounds like we definitely had like the exact kind of same experience, other than I was able to just like pick up the character that I had. But I did the same thing where Lester's like, "Hey, come talk to me about these missions," and I was like, "Okay, Lester." So I go watch the cutscene, and he goes, "Okay, you want to do the sweet casino heist that we added?" And I go, "Yeah, absolutely, that sounds great." And he goes, "Okay, for what you got to do is go buy the arcade. It costs $2.5 million, and that's just the base level price. If you want to customize it, it costs more, and then we can go do the mission." And I'm just like, "Okay, well, I guess I'm never going to do that then."
Yeah.
And then same thing with like all the other stuff you can buy. Like I did end up buying the motorcycle club because it's the cheapest thing you can buy and it was on sale.
Mm-hmm.
So I got it for like 200,000. And that was one of those things where I was like, okay, well, let me buy this in case like you and I, or if anyone from the site wants to end up doing these, like playing GTA Online or doing the motorcycle missions, I'll already have this whole set like unlocked.
Yeah.
And
I did. I picked up the like, it's like a $5 DLC or something that's like Criminal Starter Enterprise or something, or Starter Criminal Enterprise or something like that, and like that gives you like a handful of free like properties you can buy and stuff. Like you get a free like business free motorcycle club or something like that. But even that, I was telling you beforehand, I was like, I would go into the thing to try and buy it and be like, you need the call from Simeon before you can you can buy anything. I'm like, why is Simeon not calling me? And not like, and I had to go in online and figure out, oh, I need to go and I need to go hang out in a liquor store until he calls me while I'm in a liquor store or something like that. Is basically what needed to trigger it. But yeah, it was like, okay, here's your building for free. But if you want to add anything onto it, boom, that's $1 million or something like that. I'm like, and this was before the $1 million had been deposited into my account so the reason both of us I think hopped in was because the PlayStation in their conference they were like, every player will get $1 million every month between now and when GTA Online launches for free on PS5 in late 2021 or whatever. So I was like, okay, well that's cool. And to get that $1 million, you basically have to log in for each of those months, and then it'll see you've logged in, and it'll deposit to your account like a day or two later or something like that. So I didn't have that money yet, and it was like, but I created my business, called it That Nerdy Site, put that on the wall or whatever. But yeah, it was like, if I wanted to change the color of anything, that was like $1 million or something. I was like, okay, well then I'm fucking fine with the base, red color scheme or whatever it is. Or if I wanted to add a gun safe or anything like that, I was like, why do I? And I did like one or two little missions where it was like, okay, go find the packages out in the world and then bring it back to your warehouse or something like that. And that's really pretty much where that's around the time that Last of Us came out, and so I kind of bounced off that. But now that I was saying, now that we're in July, I'll hop back into the game to get my next million or something, just to check in on it, and so maybe you and I can sit down and hop in and do a little bit of exploration or something, in that world, because it's fun. And I enjoy the game. I said, I think last time, I hate how, if I'm in a lobby with people screaming racist shit or whatever, I have to actively go in to every individual person and mute them. I can't just be like, I just want to play muted, no mics or anything like that. The fact that it doesn't let me do that is just infuriating.
I did figure out when I was playing that you can change the default settings to only when you're in free mode like that only people on your friends list or in your crew are you'll be able to hear them. So it effectively automatically mutes everyone.
Okay.
But the problem that then I ran into is that whenever you leave the free mode and go into a mission or a death match or a race or something, that completely goes out the window, and there is no way to mute people in the missions. And I very frequently have run into both children and people just saying racist things. I'm pretty sure I literally heard someone say the N-word. And I was like that, and I'm like, okay, I didn't know we were still at this place with gaming. I guess I guess I've just been too in my own bubble.
I encountered that in because I was just doing random races or something like that, and it was a 10-lap race, and the first lap in, and this squad of 2 or 3 people were clearly all playing together, and they're doing the race, and they're just screaming the N-word at one another, and I don't want to make assumptions, but based on the way they were talking to each other, I got the impression they were black, but so it's okay, well, I still don't necessarily think that we should be normalizing that word, but it's also not my place to say anything in that context. But it's still I don't really want to be hearing it, so why can't I mute you guys, or why can't I? It was frustrating. And then I also told you the story of I was popping into it was a required Lamar mission with 2 people or something like that, where you had to go from point A to point B but hide from the cops. And I finally got somebody to play it with me, and it ended up being this 10-year-old boy or something like that who's on mic, and he's trying to guide me through the mission. He's okay, come over here, no, where are you going, no, come over here, and because I'm just I'm ignoring him and just trying to go to the follow the waypoint on the map and avoid the cops and stuff, and he just keeps he's a high-level kid, so he's clearly played a lot of the game or whatever and should know what he's doing, but he just kept saying no, come over here, come back this way, come over this way, come over this way, come here, and I'm like, avoiding the cops and getting closer to the waypoint, and he's super slow going and not making any progress. And then he eventually gets, like, I hear him start talking like, oh no, the cops, I can't get around, oh no, they're surrounding me, I can't get away. And like, I'm looking at on my map to where he is, and I'm like, well, if he goes this way or whatever, he'd be able to get around them, but I'm not playing with a microphone or anything like that, and I'm not going to try and navigate and tell this little 10-year-old what to do or whatever. And so, like, I'm just trying to race to the point at that point, but he gets caught by the cops or whatever, and the mission I get an automatic fail. I'm like, well, god damn it. So I'm like, well, this sucks. That was a waste of 10 minutes of my time or whatever. And then yeah, I just was like, I hate people. I hate having to rely on other people, complete rando strangers in that game, and being penalized for when they screw up or don't know what they're doing or whatever.
Or when they purposely fuck you over just because it's fun.
Yeah, that absolutely, they could do that too.
And
there was one guy, I did one of the arena war things because they were doing like triple XP or something on that for the time that I was playing. And there was like this one username. I just kept seeing him like hunt me down and kill me in those arena war things. And I was like, I don't even know. It was like a capture the flag game. And somehow he had a motorcycle that had a machine gun. So he was able to shoot me. But like none of the cars I was spawning into had any kind of weapons. So I was like, how the fuck am I supposed to fight back against this guy? And so really, like, but he was just like, I kept seeing his name come after me. I was like, fuck this guy. It was just like annoying. I was like, well, like, I like parts of this mode, but I clearly don't understand this mode well enough to understand how he was able to get a machine gun motorcycle to attack me, and I'm stuck with just like a low rider that just drives around the space and doesn't have any kind of like artillery behind it. So
I think it's because like with the Arena Wars stuff, at least what I was looking at, because I think you have to like buy upgrades, or like if you buy the car, you have to like buy all the upgrades, or you can buy the already like outfitted cars with like armor and machine guns and shit.
Okay.
But I think it just kind of goes back into the thing though, where it's like that's almost like you just have to spend money in the game. So he's basically just buying the ability to be better. Like,
yep. Oh yeah, it's definitely a pay to play kind of game. Absolutely. It's interesting realizing that like the $1 million that they're giving every month is effectively like $20 worth of like the in-game currency, and it's just mind-boggling to realize how little that buys you in the game.
Yeah.
How little 20 real life dollars buys you in that game. It's just like, oh man, yeah, like. Shout out to the people that were in the lobbies that I was seeing like had level 400 plus or whatever. I was like, you guys are insane. Good for you. I'm definitely not going to be that guy, but it was fun to hop into for a little bit here and there.
Well, yeah, because that was kind of my thing, and if anything, why I got a little bit into it is because like I kind of had the opposite, where I had already started The Last of Us, and I needed to take a break, but not just because of anything with The Last of Us. I was just like, I don't have the mental energy right now to pay attention to the story, and like those combat encounters you have to pay attention to, like there's more going on, whereas GTA is just cars and things exploding, and it's just and I had like podcasts on most of the time, because eventually, yeah, I just turned off all the audio in the game because I was like, I'm tired of hearing these people. Like, but like that's what I thought. It was like it's fun, but I'd like the part I hated is just definitely all the other people, like whether in the free mode world or the people you get paired up with missions, because no matter what mission, I couldn't get so many of the actual missions done, like the ones that have like story cutscenes and stuff like that. I couldn't get them done because like I would get kicked from somebody's game, or like nobody would join, or we finally would join and somebody else on my team would fuck up. Or even then we would get to the end. Like there was one I tried to do where you had to steal cars. So we all stole the cars, went down to the docks, and the one dude just blew up all the cars. Like, and it's like, okay, thanks dude. Cause now we just don't get anything. And it just kicks us back to the free mode. Like, and it's just this thing of like, you stack all that together. And then now I've been playing for an hour and I've made literally no progress towards anything. And
yeah, there was a moment, cause like I obviously had very limited arsenal because at that level 10 or whatever I was at, I could buy very few things, and there was somebody who decided to just start trolling me, and so he's like, I'm driving around Los Santos and he's definitely trying to like run me off the road and stuff, and I'm like, all right, this guy's like being annoying. He's trying to shoot at me and stuff, missing a lot, and fortunately I was like near a guns and ammo kind of place, and so like I drove in, I ran in there to get whatever little item I could get, and I was able to get a sticky bomb. I was like, all right, or a proximity mine or whatever it was. I was like, all right, well, I can at least throw this at the guy, and maybe I can get away. But if I can't, whatever, I'm at least taking this asshole out with me. And that's exactly what I did. Like I opened the door out of the gun shop, and he was like there ready to like attack me basically, and I just threw the thing at him and tried to run as quickly as I could, but the proximity trigger like went off. His car blew up. I also died, and I got the like killed yourself kind of thing. But I also took him out with me. I'm like, yeah, fuck that guy,
Yeah, no,
because it means nothing to me as like as a level 10 character to die or whatever, compared to like the 90 level or whatever he was at, trying to just be a dick to me.
no, like I had definitely similar experiences where yeah, like even like way higher level players would just start trying to like fuck with me no matter what I was doing. Like the one that blew my mind was that like I stole a truck from an NPC because I was in the middle of nowhere with a car or without a car, so I stole a truck, and
Hmm.
the NPC basically put a bounty on me, and the bounty was for $1,000, which is literally nothing. It is less than
Yeah,
like a dollar.
yeah,
And because like we're talking about like $1 million is basically nothing in the game, let alone $1,000. And the dude who was trying to chase me to get the bounty in like a bomber plane, he was dropping bombs on the highway trying to blow me up. He literally was like level 500 and something. And I was like, okay, so this guy definitely just has like nothing better to do. Because I'm like, or I guess the other thing I was thinking about too was like, man, I guess it's like people are already going to go around killing you and griefing you just for free. So when you offer
yeah,
them $1,000, I guess that's way more encouragement than they even needed in the first place.
yeah,
But I'm like, even that is like just annoying because I had the same thing where like I've had multiple different times where people in the world are just trying to like grief you. And I eventually ended up just basically like whenever I'm in free mode, I basically live in the passive mode, which turns you into a ghost and nobody's
yeah.
able to touch you and you're not able to touch other people.
Yeah, and that's like that was where I realized like I tried to do that myself. I was like, oh cool, I can play this as like the single player. But then it's like, but then I tried to do the mission or whatever, where it was, rob a store or whatever. It was like in passive mode you can't pull out a gun. I'm like, well, fuck.
Yeah, because that's why then whenever you're trying to do like a mission or even the free roam missions like rob a store or eventually it'll like you can do like cargo drops or whatever. And like yeah, you have to turn off passive if you're trying to do anything. But if you other than if you're just trying to like go buy guns and ammo and like there was one point I was getting tattoos because I had a bunch of money finally and I was like, yeah, I'll just go get a bunch of tattoos because why not? And of course, somebody just had to come in the store and kill me while I was getting tattoos because fuck me, I was just trying to play the game.
Yeah, yeah. It's
The
like I just wish there were better, like, if you want that experience, you can have that experience. I wish they had an option for people that don't want that experience.
Yeah, yeah, because I'm definitely with you there. And I guess the only thing I can think of is like you have to start like a private lobby that's like invite only, and you have to invite
Exactly.
like your friends.
Yeah.
But that still is just like so much effort and like I get Grand Theft Auto is this like crazy like think about the old single player Grand Theft Auto where it's like yeah it's this crazy like hectic where we're just gonna be running around blowing stuff up and it's action and I guess they don't want to take away like the rampage stuff from people in like the online mode but it kind of bothers me that there's just no penalty for like you could just go around killing everybody in the map and there's just literally no penalty and because like the one that got me was like these two guys were in like an APC and they just posted up outside of the casino, which is like the big hub where everybody's constantly going to meet up because that's where you get your like daily login rewards where you can spin the wheel for a bonus. And I also figured out if you talk to the cashier, they'll give you 1,000 chips every day. So where
Oh
that guy
yeah,
was
I didn't even end up going to the casino. I just like I got that little mission. I was like, oh, I'm not gonna go do anything there, so what do I care? Because yeah, I didn't even think about that.
Well, yeah, yeah, because so basically, like, there's the casino heist, and then in the actual casino, you can play like slots and poker and stuff, and you can even bet on horse races.
Yeah.
And then there's like a wheel that you can spin once every day, and you'll get like RP, clothes, a car, like it has like prizes. And then you can also get the $1,000 from talking to like the cashier, and it says like visitor bonus or whatever. Um, so that was like, but so that's where like the casino is like the one hub I feel like where everybody is constantly meeting up because everybody's wanting to go to the casino. and like these guys were just posted up in like an APC outside the casino. One dude's in the machine gun on the APC, just killing anybody that'll get near there. And so usually when these people were like trying to grief me, they would just kill me and I'd be like, all right, whatever. I would go into passive mode or do whatever. But this time I just was like, hey, fuck these guys. So I kind of did like what you're talking about with like the pipe bomb.
Hmm.
Because after I had gotten the $1 million, I went and I bought all the stuff I had available in the ammunition, and one of those things is like a homing rocket launcher. And since that was added as like one of the DLC packs or whatever, or expansions or whatever you want to call it for online, so
Yeah.
there's no like level tied to it. You can just buy it right out the gate if you have the money. And so I basically just posted up and I just started firing rockets, and it took like 4 or 5 rockets, but I blew up the APC, I blew up both of these dudes. And my thing though is like I don't get any penalty. They don't get any penalty for anything they did. I don't get the penalty for killing them, but I got charged $1,000 because I blew up their APC, so I have to pay to replace it.
Oh, because they were insured or whatever.
Yeah, because it was like a personal vehicle that guy had insured. So the game's like, hey, 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 you killed this guy, or they're like, you blew up this guy's personal vehicle, and I go, and this guy was killing 12 people outside the casino, including me, but I'm the asshole because I blew up his APC.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then of course, like he just calls the APC back in, and then they just started doing the same thing again. But I was like, I don't care, I already got you guys. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's I mean, it's definitely it's a game, um, and yeah, it's probably one I would enjoy much more, like actually hopping in and playing with other people. Even if it is just one of those things, like it's fun to hop in and shoot the shit with. We talked, I think, last time we were talking about Grand Theft Auto or something, like the No Clip documentary, where Danny kind of focused around that like crew of people that goes and plays like together every year or something for a weekend, or they play together all the time and they actually meet up once a year kind of thing. It's a really great kind of story, and like if I was in a crew like that, that'd probably be a really cool experience. But also I like playing too many other things to devote that much time to Grand Theft Auto. So it's fun hopping in just kind of here and there, and revisiting it. And now that I talking to you, I'm like, oh, okay. When I hop in for my July million, I'll go swing by the casino and see if I, have fun. Like, see if I can not get killed by ATC people, kind of like sitting outside the thing, ready to blow me up. But yeah. Well, cool. The last thing I want to dive into, but is I've continued to play Animal Crossing as many people do, and I've still been checking in on every day, and they just released the diving update, which allows you to hop into the water outside your island or like around your island. You can now go swimming around your island, and you can go diving, pick up certain items in there. And it's fun. It is way too slow. It's like frustratingly slow swimming around your island. And like if you want to even try and be faster in swimming, you have to basically like just keep button mashing the A button.
not like GTA.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like it probably takes me 20 minutes to swim around like the perimeter of the island, and that was if I wasn't trying to do like anything and catch stuff in the way. But it's other than that, it's fine. It's basically got a new set of critters to collect, and I've already caught all of the critters available in July. I did that like the first day it was out. I have a wonderful app on Android. Let me pull up the name of it. It is called ACNH Guide. It's this little guide that people put together. I know there's like versions of this on iOS too, kind of thing. And it's basically like. He's got a whole bunch of different sections in here, including like your museum progress, and you can basically go through and you can see what bugs are available at all times, what sea creatures are available at times. It'll basically say like, are you playing in the northern hemisphere or the southern hemisphere? Okay, like I'm looking right now. It's like, okay, here are all the bugs that are catchable in the northern hemisphere in July at 4 p.m. because that's what it is here in Phoenix right now as we're recording this. And you can go in and click onto any of those bugs, and you'll get a little bit more detail on like here's where you find them, or that kind of stuff. And you can basically like tag them and say, okay, I've already caught this one, I've already donated this one to Tom to Blathers, and then there's a similar thing on the fish side. They don't have one on the new sea creature side of things, so I went through and took like I found one of the guides that had it already outlined on on like Polygon or something like that. And I took the little spreadsheet that they put together there, and I converted it into my own Google spreadsheet with all the 40 things, and then basically like a checkbox for the months that they're available, and then I have that all mapped out, and I just like filtered down to, okay, here's everything that's available in July, and let me go through and make sure I get all of these guys. And so yeah, within a day I had all of the 24 different sea creatures that are available to me right now, I think. And yeah, I was like, cool. And like I'm still, it is a game I still kind of check in like with every day. I also have the guy that, one of the guys that does like a lot of the data mining, has put together a site that will also tell you like when you're going to have meteor showers on your island and stuff. And you basically have to track your weather patterns for like a whole bunch of different periods, and then he can basically like run that through the data mining database that he has, and basically say, okay, here's the seed number for your island. This is the specific island that you've generated on, and here's what the weather patterns look like for that island. And so I finally have input enough data on my own end to have it narrowed down to the one island that I'm on, and sure enough, like that's I'm getting accurate weather predictions and stuff now, based on that. So I have like I've gone down into the weeds on that. I'm gonna have like a light meteor shower here in a day or two, so I'll be able to get some more meteor segments. I had a double rainbow on my island yesterday that I tweeted out about, and it's just like I don't know what the double rainbow does for anything, but this guy who did all this data mining and put together the little tracker online like gave me the tools to know that I was going to have a double rainbow when I logged in at 1:00 yesterday or whatever it was. Yeah, it's like I'm enjoying the game. I'm definitely playing it, like I find myself playing it less, where I'm really only checking in on like the morning. I'm doing all like the morning chores, and then that's pretty much it until maybe before bed or something. Or if I need to do something at like certain times of the day. But like I haven't been doing the turnip exchange for a while now because I'm like, I already have 24 million bells or something like that. I'm not in need for money. So I haven't really felt compelled to do any of that kind of stuff. But yeah, I'm just kind of enjoying, like July also, aside from the diving update, July also just had a ton of new bugs and a few new fish and stuff. So I think I'm up in the 70s out of 80 bugs and out of 80 fish, I believe. I think I have 70 plus of both. So I'm almost done with like my Critterpedias or whatever, Nookopedias or whatever they are. But it's still going to take a few months because it's still going to be like, okay, there's going to be like inevitably one thing that doesn't come out until February or something like that. So, but yeah, I'm enjoying it. I'm still playing any Animal Crossing?
I still haven't picked it up on my side. I know it's funny because this is something I was like so excited
Oh, that's
for.
right. Yeah, you were super excited about that, and we discussed it at PAX East.
Yeah, because like I'm a big Animal Crossing fan, and it's one of the Nintendo franchises that, if anything, I have like an actual attachment to. And I played it like when I was a kid on GameCube, and it sounds like this is definitely, especially from what I've seen of it, like this is a great like addition like in the series. But it definitely sounds like it still kind of has that very classic Animal Crossing point where like you get to the point where you're like, well, I've kind of like done everything, and now I just kind of like turn it on for a couple minutes and like walk around and do like the daily stuff. And I know a lot of the people who were really excited about it and were kind of like on board with it or have already kind of like fallen out and aren't even playing it anymore. So I'm hoping with this edition they can do a much better job of like making it like a live service kind of thing, where I do think it's cool that
Yeah.
they're doing like monthly updates. I just
Yep, and that's very much what it has been. It has been the like oh, for the month of June they had like a thing where you could go do like the photo mode thing, and you'd get new items if you did that with Reese and Cyrus or something like that. Some of those characters, and then yeah, now in July they've added the swimming, and so they are constantly kind of adding new things. Because yeah, you could time travel outside of all this and go and get all the fish or go and get all the stuff, but you're not getting like the in-game events that they're kind of keeping it fresh with as time. Because like if you time travel to July 2 months ago, you wouldn't have been able to do the swimming. That was something that they added in via an update, via a patch this last week. So yeah, it's. I think they're doing a really good job of keeping me with a reason to keep checking in, even if it isn't like. Even if I get to the point where I'm not going to check in and do like daily chores or something like that, I'm still going to probably check in each month to make sure I'm getting all the new fish and all the new critters and stuff added to my collection for the month.
And I think it's interesting is yeah, like not only are they able to like add and kind of patch stuff in like that, it's like even like the if you go to like Halloween, like the Halloween event's not going to be there because it's not
Yeah.
Halloween. Like it is kind of like locked behind like their actual updates and like the them connecting to like their servers. Because before I remember like when they, or at least on the Wii version, it was like, hey, we added all these cool things like collecting candy on Halloween and collecting eggs on Easter, and then there's even kind of like a Christmas thing, but you could just time travel like over to that date and do it, or even as I did, you could farm it because like
Mm-hmm.
that furniture was super valuable. So I would just get a bunch of that furniture and then sell it, and then that's how I would make a bunch of bells like really quickly. But I think it's interesting that they tried to like that you just can't do that now that it is like a live service game. Like you have to wait to Halloween, and it is actually going to be like this big Halloween event in game. Although I do think it was unfortunate that with the timing, the first big event was Easter because that's definitely like the worst event in the entire year.
Yeah, that was a rough one, and I think they even have come out and said like, yeah, we didn't intend that to be our first event. Obviously, if the game had released back when it was like originally planned on releasing or something like that, you would have had something else in there beforehand. But I think they also like have learned from that and just realized, okay, so people don't want something like that replacing all their the items or whatever for such an extended period of time. So I think I think they're learning and trying to shift some of their strategies around some of that stuff.
And that's good because I do think that was a weird choice because it wasn't like that before. And I get you got to do new things, you got to try new things, and I don't know. I guess I just don't know why they thought that was the way to go about it, where it replaces everything, especially because this one puts a little bit more emphasis on like you have to collect rocks and like materials, and there's crafting, and like that's stuff that was never there before. So the
And
fact that it's like you
it
just
didn't
replace all it with eggs. Go ahead.
and it didn't replace it all with eggs. It was just like
It was mostly eggs.
it was eggs in addition to rocks or whatever. So if you were trying to get rocks or iron nuggets or something out of hitting the rocks or something, you were also getting stone eggs out of that or something like that. It's like, okay, yeah, but I need 30 iron nuggets for this challenge you want me to do, and I can't get those 30 iron nuggets if 10 of the times you gave me a stone egg that I don't care about or that I don't want. Or it was the eggs would be flying across in the balloons or something, and you'd shoot down a balloon and you'd hope that it was going to be a present or with an item in it or something, and it'd be an egg. Or you dig up something from the ground, hoping it was one of the fossils you were going to get from the island that day, and it was an egg, and it was just like, fishing was probably the most egregious one, where it was you're fishing, you're trying to catch fish, especially you're trying to catch the fish that are about to leave at the end of this month or whatever, and you're just getting egg after egg after egg. Just like that was, I think that was probably what was the most annoying to people about that. Like for me, it was like, whatever. I don't care that much. Especially because I had probably fortunately gotten all of like the real like rare fish or bugs or whatever that I needed to get before any of that stuff really started dropping in. So it wasn't like I got enough eggs and I was like, okay, I don't need to keep getting eggs anymore. If they're there, sure, I'll get them. If not, I don't care. So yeah, I think it was a mix of that. But yeah, it was a lot of people that like it. When people are trying to get all these new things or whatever, and you can't get the new things because eggs are replacing the things instead, or something like that, or are filling up the randomness of it instead. I think that was irksome for a lot of people.
I think that's totally fair though, especially just because like yeah, like it is kind of somewhat time based and you kind of are trying to get like if you have your objectives you're trying to get done because I feel like a lot of the game or at least what it used to be is like you kind of decide what you're into and what you want to do. So if you just love fishing and you're trying to get all the fish that are kind of timed for that period, it does kind of suck when you're just getting eggs that are like something you don't care about. So
Yeah, it was the same thing. Did you play the Halloween event in Borderlands 3 last year?
Not in Borderlands 3. I hadn't started it at that point.
Okay. So yeah, in Borderlands 3, they did like a Halloween event where you'd go to a character or whatever, and he would send you off on a quest. But like, and to get access to the quest or whatever, you had to go and get like you had to shoot 25 skulls or whatever, and skulls would just drop randomly out of after killing enemies, um, and uh, and you couldn't turn that off at first. So even if you already did the quest and you just wanted to go and like do other things in the game, or you were just like if you were just trying to play through the game normally, you were still having to fight all these extra skull enemies that you didn't care about. That combined with all the random loot drops that they were spitting out had the quest specific like bonuses and perks on them that were taking away from other perks and stuff. So they eventually came back and said, okay, we realized people want to be able to turn this thing off. That they've in follow up events and stuff, they've basically given you that option of like, do you want to play the game with this thing on or with it off? And so like when I hopped back in for one of the DLCs recently, there was also an event going on at the same time, and I was like, okay, well, I want to do the DLC first, so let me just do that, and then I'll come back and do whatever this random event thing is that's going on. And it was like it was an example of them learning from kind of the community feedback of like, hey, we want you to give us the option to buy in or out of this thing. Don't make us have to sit through it every time. Especially in the last one, it was like enemies would randomly like you had to kill cartel members or something like that, and cartel members would randomly drop in the middle of other encounters. So if you're like in the middle of a firefight and you had that thing turned on, you're suddenly getting overwhelmed by other enemies that are jumping into the fight to mess you up for this side quest thing, this side thing. And so it was a similar kind of thing that was frustrating if you weren't looking for it, or was more frustrating than it needed to be. And so I think you'll see Nintendo kind of respond in kind, where or maybe they won't. Maybe they'll just keep being Nintendo. But it would not surprise me if like next year when the egg event rolls around, they have some kind of different solution for it, or they drastically drop the drop rate of them or something like that.
No, I think it's totally fair to make it kind of almost like a toggle where you can say like, yeah, I'm very interested in this, or you can just turn it off where you're like, no, please just give me like normal spawns.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the diving update and just kind of like July and just kind of my Animal Crossing stuff in general. Yeah, I'm I've been playing so I've checked in and I've gotten the fossils like every day since the game came out, and I am one freaking fossil shy of completing my my fossil collection, and it's annoying because every day it's like I get them, I take the 4 fossils or more if I go to some of the random mystery islands or whatever, take him to Blathers, I have him assess them, and every day he's like, oh, sorry, we already have all these things. I'm tempted to buy them from you myself, but no, I shouldn't. And I'm like, just give me the one damn thing I need. It was 2 for like a month or 2 there, and then I finally got one of the 2. I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks ago or whatever. But I'm still sitting on like the one last thing that I need, and then I will be done with fossils. I have, let me see what my app is telling me, because I'm going in and logging all this stuff. I have all of so I have all but one of the fossils. I have 71 out of 80 of the bugs. I have 71 out of 80 of the fish, and I have 6 out of 43 of the art. Because Red, who comes for the art, it really only comes by, like, he might only come by once a week, and it's basically like he's mixed in with a few of the other NPCs, and they just tweaked this around with the diving update. But it was like you're guaranteed to get 3 of the 8 NPCs to come to your island each week. Like, you were guaranteed to get Sahara and Kix and Leaf. And then the other 2 days would be a random selection of like the 5 other characters that could come by your island. And it sounds like with the July update that they just pushed, they've randomized that more, so it's not going to be guaranteed those 3 each week. It's going to be like probably more random. Just each day you will get a random one of those characters. But as a result, that meant that Red and Gulliver and a couple of those other characters were like would only show up like once every 2 or 3 weeks or something like that, and it was irksome. So I imagine having 6 art pieces in my gallery right now, I'm probably higher of the non like time traveling people that are kind of gaming the system and stuff. But yeah,
It's
I'm still like I'd still check in every day to see who's showing up on the island, what other things I need to do, and trying to get that last damn fossil. Because once I get that last fossil, that's probably going to be I'm probably going to at that point be like, okay, well, I don't need to do this chore anymore. So that's going to be one less reason for me to like check in every day. Because other than that, it's just kind of like I check in, I get whatever little random message in a bottle recipe I have on the island, and usually it is one that I've already got, and so I'm like, okay, now I just have to throw the recipe card somewhere or sell it or something, and then I check in on the store each day and see if there are new items that I have not added into my catalog that I want to kind of pick up and purchase. But yeah,
have you
that's pretty much what my experience is these days.
have you thought about getting on like one of the trade boards and be like, I'm looking for this fossil, please?
I've thought about it, but I in the same way that like when my island like had a great turnip price or something like that, I wasn't going to what because it's Nookazon is basically the board where you can go get the trades and stuff, and then it's what turnip profit or something like that. No, turnip profit is what tells me what how it's and that's the guy who did the weather chart is the same guy behind the turnip profit page, where it's if you put in your turnip prices and what your like sequence was last week, he can basically project with pretty good regularity what kind of turnip rates you'll have on a given week. And I don't remember what the actual turnip site is, but I've not like put it out there publicly in that regard. Like I'll tweet it out to like any of my followers, or I'll reach out to friends or something and be like, hey, I've got good turnip prices if you want to come by. But yeah, I've not dug into like even there was a point where I reached into in one of the discords I was in. I was like, this is the one thing I'm looking for, and I think somebody even was like, oh, I have a spare one of those, and then they just never got back to me to like actually come by my island and drop it off or whatever, and we couldn't coordinate. So I was like, all right, whatever. So I'm sure I could go to Nookazon and find that kind of thing, but I'm like, I also I like having the reason to go in and do it, so I don't feel the need to go in and really kind of like track that stuff down. I'll get it when the game gives it to me. I'll just kind of trust on the RNGesus of it. Or if it never gives it to me, so be it, and I'll just never have a complete collection. Who knows? But it's been fun. Like I helped Andrea Renee from What's Good Games really got into Animal Crossing, and I helped get her set up with a lot of stuff. Gave her a lot of items she was looking for kind of early on, or she's been doing a lot of like decoration of her island. So like she wanted to do like an outdoor themed set of like shell things, and I was like, oh, I've collected a ton of shells, and I have a ton of the DIY recipes for shells, so I can't give you the DIY recipe so she can make them herself, but I crafted a handful of items for her, and then basically either went to her island and gave them to her, or just sent them to her after that. So that was a lot of fun. And it's been fun kind of seeing her like enjoyment of the game mirroring my own, really, as because both of us are people that really hadn't been into Animal Crossing before this, and then both fell super down the rabbit hole for Animal Crossing. So
And that's
yeah.
one of the things I love though too is that like I vote there's certain like online communities or that are like super welcoming, but I feel like for a long time, yeah, there has been like a really awesome welcoming like Animal Crossing community. Like I mean obviously you already knew Andrea, but it's cool that like the mentality like you had for her where you're like, hey, let me like I'm already farther ahead than you, let me just give you a bunch of stuff or let me help you out. Like I think that's a really awesome mentality that like the game just kind of has with like a ton of people. Like there's always a ton of people like, hey, let me help you with this, or I'll give you this, or let's trade this. And like I think like that's why you see so many of these websites and the dude like doing the weather calculations and stuff too. And like I just think that's like one of the most amazing things about it. And they've
Yeah.
only like improved that as like the franchise has gone on.
Yeah, and the app that I have on my phone, I picked up like pretty early on, and the guy just was kind of doing it as a fun little thing, and and it was like you could I mean, it was an Android thing, so you could basically buy it, or you could get it as like a free app, and it would have like ads and stuff, and there was an option in there to be like, I think even he still has like a you can pay $3 or whatever, and basically remove the ads from this. And I was like, yeah, I'll do that. And he even has a little thing in there that basically is like, also if you want to like buy me a meal or something like that, you can do an in-game purchase or in-app purchase to like send him $5 or something. And the amount of like stuff that he's continued to add to it, like originally it was just like I was just looking for a thing that would tell me what bugs were available, or I could like go in and find, but like he's added all of the residents to it, so I can basically go in and select what residents I have on my island. And so basically I have like a daily checklist of things I can do, where it's like, okay, make sure you go and talk to all your villagers, and check them off the box. You can basically go through and log he has basically tied it to Turnip Profit, so like you can log your turnip prices in this app, and then he'll like he basically gives you a like click to view on Turnip Profit, and it'll like input all that information. You can go look at it over there and see, what your turnip prices are going to look like for the week. And then you can like, he's got little check boxes for all the little rocks that you need to hit on the island. And if he added in the visitor tracker. So when it was Sahara and Leaf and Kix, like they're listed as like once a week visitors, and then you have your the other like two that you'll get throughout the week were Boots and Labelle and or Label, CJ Flick and Gulliver, and you could basically go through and say like, okay, it's Monday and Sahara's here, and so you click on this little Sahara icon and it would say, okay, Sahara's there on Monday, and you could kind of like he just added those little calendar things to track some of that stuff. Like I've got a thing on here that says, hey, here's who on your island has a birthday this month. And he's just continued to add to this app. I'm like, yeah, shout out to this guy for like all the work that he's putting into it. I have no doubt that within a week he'll have added in the sea creatures, and I'll be able to kind of go in and check which ones I've donated to Blathers in there. So shout out to the people that are kind of devoted to creating those little extra experiences for people that want to track that kind of stuff on their own time. And then, yeah, just also shout out to the community in general. Like I even remember going back to like my first day on the island, Joey Noel came by and was like, hey, I've been playing the game, for review and stuff for the last couple of weeks. So I already have most of the other fruits. So let me know if you want, if and I think she came to my island and gave me pears or something like that. And so by day one, I already had all of the fruits from all the other islands because her and various friends kind of helped me out with that. So yeah, shout out to that. I think even Andrea, she continually talks about one of her friends, Maria, basically gave her like $1 million loan to start her out, so she could, immediately kind of jump in and start paying off Nook things and all that kind of stuff. And now that Andrea has the money to like repay that loan, Maria's like, I have like multi-million dollars. Keep your million. I don't care. I don't need it. Whatever. Go buy yourself one of those $1 million crowns. But like, yeah, the fact that people are so like if you ever hop into it and you need kind of a leg up or anything, I have a ton of things I'm sure I could give you and help you out with. So let me know when the time comes.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. So that's Animal Crossing. And kind of the latest there. And they've already kind of announced that they'll also have another summer update here next month in August, and I'm curious to see what that ends up being as well. Because yeah, at this point, like I said, I already in day one I went through and already got all of the new creatures I can get. I can still go in and get like if you catch scallops in this diving update, Pascal the otter shows up and he'll like basically ask you for your scallop, and he'll give you like an item from like a new mermaid set of DIY items or outfits or something. I got like a mermaid dress today. I'm like, cool, neat. So yeah, cool stuff.
I'm sure Pascal will also give you some sweet wisdom. That was always his thing.
Yep. Oh yeah. I've been screenshotting all of the little things the little nuggets he gives you, because it's like he's saying some stuff. I don't have my Switch near me, otherwise I'd like pull one up and read it off. But yeah, he's a fascinating guy. Yeah.
he was a favorite of mine in terms of like the NPCs that like aren't villagers, and because he
Hmm.
wasn't in the original one on GameCube, but they added him at least on the Wii one. But I just love him because you would just run across him on like a bridge. He would say spit some wisdom at you, and then he would just do like a backflip into the water and float away.
Nice. Yep. So yeah, that's going to do it for this week's episode. Thank you, Frank, for sitting down and chatting with me. Always nice catching up, especially because it's been a couple weeks since we had kind of a regular That Nerdy Site show. So that's going to do it. Let's go around the table. Any plugs? You can follow Frank at Irrelevant Jokes on Twitter. Anything you want to give a shout out to, Frank?
Nah, I guess not at the moment.
Okay. You follow me at Trevor J. Starkey on Twitter. Like I said earlier, keep an eye out to the That D Plus show for the next however many weeks, because we're going to be doing lots and lots of Hamilton stuff over there, and I'm looking forward to kind of all those fun chats and conversations. You can follow all of us over at That Nerdy Site. You can check out thatnerdysite.com for all the latest content. If you liked what you heard, please rate, review, like, subscribe, maybe even consider supporting us on Patreon at patreon.com/thatnerdysite. Every patron gets early access to a monthly bonus episode of the show. This month's episode, the episode from last month of Frank and Jazz talking about cop procedural shows and stuff, that's now live for everybody. And so the Patreon early access episode for this month is Logan and I sat down, kind of bouncing off of one of the news stories from That News You Care About. We were talking about J.K. Rowling and how her recent comments are like affecting the morale at the studio working on the unannounced Harry Potter game. And so we ended up kind of just talking about our respective relationship to the Harry Potter series for about an hour. So you can go check out that episode for kind of our little history with Harry Potter. So yeah, that's going to do it. As always, thank you for listening. Stay nerdy and be good to each other.